All right. Well, welcome everyone to Satsang today. So glad you're all here. As always, I'm delighted to be here, back live again. And I believe I'm going to be live next week, although I am going to be traveling. It looks like I'm going to be in Chicago next week, or somewhere near there. But I will be doing Satsang, and hopefully in front of a live audience. But if we can get the place together and all of that in a short period of time, then that'll be the case. Otherwise, we'll be doing it just it'll still be live. It'll just be privately. Remember, Satsang is an opportunity to take an hour or two out of your otherwise hectic week to devote to the deepest kind of self-inquiry. And I called the show today Living from the Heart. And the whole non-dual inquiry thing can really become quite a mind game. It's actually a place where people can hide. I know, because I did it, and I mean, I know a Zen master who said that he did it, and that it's the logic and reasonableness and precision of non-dual inquiry can become quite seductive, and in fact, you'll see it all the time. Most of the teachers that you see on YouTube and the like as non-dual teachers, in my humble opinion, are very much stuck in the absolute. And they are stuck in the non-dual inquiry, the point where they simply don't even want to admit there is a body or a heart or emotions or relationships or anything like that. And it's not that what they're saying is wrong. It's just not complete. It's just not the whole picture. As you've heard me say a million times before, it comes right from the Heart Sutra, that all dharmas are provisional, all dharmas are empty, all teaching is temporary. It is simply what is what is necessary in the moment, based on the particular level of attainment of the one that you're speaking to. And so, if you're only speaking in the most precise non-dual terms for somebody who doesn't get that in the slightest, it's really quite a disservice and can actually set somebody's spiritual growth back, which is something we don't want to do. So I wanted to just dedicate a little bit of time today to talk about what it means to be inquiring with the heart, living with the heart. That word heart is huge. It means all sorts of things, not just the thing pounding in your chest, the heart chakra, the energy center of the heart. It's the center of emotion. It's the center of intuition. It's the center of true self-knowledge. We've all experienced it in its intelligence. People might say, well, it's just feeling, I feel this or that, but it's also intelligent. It's intuitively intelligent. The center of intuition isn't the head. We have simply, all of your senses are in your head, right? The only one that's somewhere else in addition to your head is the skin, the sense of touch, the sensing, and the other sense of that is really quite undeveloped, which is simply the sense of presence, the consciousness which experiences all of that. And we've just all been trained to focus primarily on our heads, primarily on our thought, and so we just assume that nothing else we have access to is intelligent, and it's a big mistake. Anytime you've heard a teacher, myself or any teacher, say something, maybe even something you read, something a friend said, something you overheard in a conversation, when something inside you just know that it is right, that it resonates with you, is a phrase we like to use, that's the heart. It's a recognition of truth, a recognition of intelligence that is instantaneous and spontaneous. That's your heart. One of the ways in which we can get more in touch with that is actually through the body. I found that when I get in an argument in my head, when I'm really wrestling with something or struggling with something, I'm trying to understand something, if I just stop the wrestling and just put my attention in the center of my chest, that something kind of magic happens. And I'm going to invite you guys to do that today, to just allow your attention to sink, to become consciously aware of the center of your chest, and that it does have a sensing ability. It does have a presence. It does have a contact with the world. And it does have a way of recognizing truth. You know, is the actual spiritual heart center located in the chest? No, it's non-local. It's not located anywhere. It's infinite in scope. It's boundless. But where we feel it, where we experience it individually, there's a focal point of it. That's why they refer to the heart chakra that way. It's not that there's actually this spinning vortex of light there. What it is simply a place in which certain information is sensed, certain experiences are had, and so by simply putting your attention there, just forgetting about it being the chest or something, just feel that presence that we have labeled the chest, and notice if something doesn't change within the color and character of your thoughts. If something doesn't just kind of de-intensify a little bit, that's been my experience, and I'm just spending more and more time doing that of late, and thinking about things quite less. Now, that doesn't mean we throw out non-dual inquiry as no longer being significant or important. Of course not. Of course it is. It's extremely important. But like I said, it's so easy to get stuck in the head, especially because we live in a culture that it wants us to not feel. Consumerism, which I consider to be a fetish, greed, anger, the three poisons of Buddhism are all an attempt to not feel. We all had it because we all had traumatic experiences as children, and the only way to deal with the trauma is to not feel it. I mean, a trauma is simply something that happens to you cannot deal with. And there's only two choices. It either becomes a trauma, which means it's a frozen energy in your body, or you die because the body just can't deal with it. And so because of that, we have an entire culture that thrives on distraction and consumption. I mean, look at the Black Friday weekend and people running into stores to buy stuff thinking there's going to be some kind of satisfaction in there. The only satisfaction that really can move us is the satisfaction of the deep satisfaction of a reconnection to our own souls. You don't think yourself there. You feel your way there. So it's kind of my little opener for today. Let me go back here really quick and say hello to people. Anikitos in Athens, Greece. Hello from Romania. I gotta make this a little bit bigger. My eyes don't work as well as they used to. That's Bogdan, Marucyclus in Holland, Jonas from Sweden, Eli is in Wisconsin. Eli, my man. Eli says, "Wow, if you're in Chicago, I'll have to come." Well, if you're that close, because it's pretty close to Wisconsin. I'll be having more details. It's kind of happened last minute. So Juan says hello from the Dominican. Emiliano from Sweden. Lexi from a train between Vienna and Salzburg. Wow, fantastic. We're mobile. Laird is also in Chicago, who's actually helping us find a place to do something. So we really do appreciate it, Laird. Brian in Virginia. Hello from Arlington, Virginia. Today, painting a friend's flat, and this will surely help. Ah, good. I'll keep you company while you do work. Barbara from Sandpoint, Idaho. My beloved Barbara, who's helping me organize events and meetups and things like that. Thank you so much. And between her and Alicia and Tracy, I am very well taken care of. Maliuga from Slovenia. Sally, hi GP, greetings from London. Great to see you here. Awareness, hi from Trinidad. Puppy from Durji, hi. You were in Arizona, I think. Eli, many people feel their chakras spinning. What's going on there? Whoa. Yeah, I've taught a lot about the chakras. As a matter of fact, I'm putting together a new class I'm going to do in 2019 on the chakras, kind of my updated version of it and the like. You know, I'd have to talk to people who say they feel it's spinning, because oftentimes we can feel things in our bodies and we put words around it to give it a description, but it's not necessarily what it's doing. I mean, the image comes because the word chakra simply means wheel, and it talks and it's referring to the moving of the energy. Is it spinning? Is it flowing? Is it expanding? I mean, who really knows? Because it's non-physical. You can't really see it and touch it. But the fact of the matter is that it represents something very significant about us. The flowing of different aspects of the human being and what makes up a human being. And so you can, when that wheel that is, you know, energy moves, right? And the wheel represents the perpetual flow of energy that is the nature of life itself. No motion, no life, period. Life is a constant transformation, never stopping for a second. And so the wheels represent that constant motion. So are they spinning? Are they expanding? Are they flowing? Are they ebbing? I think it's really impossible to tell. You know, a lot of people claim they've seen them, can see the chakras. I know one person that I actually believe who could do that. And one of the reasons I believed him is because he read things so well, but also because it wasn't just the wheel. He didn't see it as wheels. He said he just kind of saw energy patterns and colors and things like that. And I think things like that are quite possible. When we lose our prejudices and our preconceived notions about the way things work, we see things different. We see things that we didn't see before. You know, colors can look more vibrant. Usually after a good meditation, you'll find that things look different. Things are more distinct that you see. Colors are more alive. So I don't think there's any mystery about that. I do think that it is limiting of us to try to take something like that, compress it into our thought about what it is, and then think we understand it. I'd rather see it as just kind of an infinite aspect of our infinite being, and that it's something that the meaning and depth of it is constantly unfolding. So I prefer to just stay in the mystery of not knowing, even though it reveals itself and I can say, I know this. Never feel like you've got the whole enchilada, because you don't. Does that help, Eli? Mark C. Greetings, GP and Satsang folks. Love from the Green Mountain State. I think that's Vermont, right? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know the phrase, but is it Vermont? Is it New Hampshire? Oh boy. I'm in trouble now. My geography's on it. Robert Goldberg. Hi from Southern Nevada. Hi, Robert. Eli, I've heard from my spiritual friends that do energy work that most of us only feel 2 to 6% of what energy is actually there. I don't know. The only way you could say it's 2 to 6% is if you knew the full amount of energy, right? So, I don't really trust when people put numbers on things. And how do you get the percentage of the infinite? I mean, there's, 2% of the infinite is still infinite, right? So the fact that we do not experience the totality of what is available to us is I think is just a foregone conclusion. That's a fact. And it's limited by our perceptions. But even if our perceptions were completely wide open and could take in everything that was here now, it still wouldn't be the whole thing. We would still be seeing a fraction of it because it's constantly unfolding. It's the flower that's always opening. In Hinduism, it's the image of the 1,000-petal lotus. That is the flower it's just constantly opening. It never stops opening. And that's the real nature of reality. So you're never, ever going to see 100% because you can't see 100% of the infinite. You can perceive everything that is here now as it actually is. And that's really what we're after, because then you're in the flow of life. Then you're not holding on to anything because you know that it's impermanent and that it's going to change, that it's in a constant state of transformation, which also leaves you in this constant state of playful anticipation. It means simply that you're living in the mystery. And it is a mystery because the exact nature of it is unknowable. And I really love to point that out. The ultimate achievement of self-knowledge isn't that this is what I am, that it's something outlined. It's the recognition that you can't be known, that you are, any thought you have of yourself, any feeling you have, any concept is wrong. It is only a moment. It's a temporary thing. Now, that doesn't mean that it's invalid because it's this temporary thing. It just means that what am I? Well, what I am right now. Who am I? I'm this guy in a maroon shirt sitting in front of a camera talking to you. Right? That's all I am right this moment. Right? When this is over, the camera goes off and I'm something else. Right? I'm now engaged in something else. So there's no fixed sense of anything. It is this ability to move freely between all positions, all points, all concepts, all ideas, recognizing that none of them are absolutely true. They are all empty of self-existence and are all relative only to the moment in which they appear, is where freedom lies. That's the middle way. That's the actual fluidity of being a self, but not being a self. That's how you show up in life, with no agenda whatsoever, just simply presence. And you just allow the energy within you, the resources within you, to respond and take shape as the moment requires. So you're no longer in an argument with life. You're actually flowing with life, and which makes you life itself. So, and Nikitos says, there goes jumping again. It's a great topic, GP. I was always wondering, what is the love connection with spirituality, and why always spiritual teachings talking about love as a natural state when enlightenment is attaining. Did you not finish that? Or am I just misreading it? Oh, I see. Where love is a natural state and enlightenment is something it's attained. It is a great topic. Enlightenment is simply the recognition of your reality, of the reality of you, and it isn't really an attainment. It seems that way when we're living in ignorance, but when the ignorance falls away and you see things as they are, you realize that it's always been that way, and that the ignorance was kind of like a cloud passing in front of your eyes. It was an illusion. It was a dream. It was something that was believed in the moment, but was never actually true. And so you find that you haven't actually attained anything. You have simply been dispossessed of that which isn't true. And that's the great cosmic joke. That's why you'll hear people crying or laughing when that dawns. But I invite you again to kind of go back to my original theme. Take this into your heart. Don't try to just reason it out with your head. You take it into your heart, where enlightenment actually takes root, where the awakening begins to settle into the entire system, so that the recognition of the truth of what is seen is a harmony between the mind and the heart, between the intellect and the feeling centers. And then enlightenment is not just an attainment. Enlightenment and love become one and the same. Wisdom and compassion become a single entity. And then the division between thought, feeling, and living just dissolves. And your true nature is life, and the recognition is love, and the recognition of that is enlightenment. So you see, you can't have one without the other. It does seem for us, as we are developing, as we are growing, as this personal realization of true knowledge is dawning, for many people to come to a heart level acceptance that love is your true nature is quite a relief. That it's not something you have to acquire, that it's simply something you have to liberate within you. But the very recognition of that as the truth is enlightenment. That is the flowering of human consciousness. So you see, they're not really two things. And, you know, there'd be times when I will focus a teaching on awakening, which is working with the mind, dispossessing of its illusions. But it can never stop there. And sometimes it's just a matter of the heart. Just like when I opened this satsang, I just bring your attention into your chest, into the heart center, and just stay there. Don't try to interpret it. Don't try to put any thoughts on it. Really just feel it. And that's a different approach to exactly the same thing. But the actual experience, the recognition of what's true, which is enlightenment, is not centered anywhere. It is that which is truly beyond. And because it's beyond, it's impossible to explain it. And so we have these portals, these doors, these gateways into the deep experience of that, because the ultimate experience of that cannot be put into words. So we have to work with what we got in order to converse about it, to communion together about it, to teach and learn about it. We focus attention in various places, and each one of those places is a doorway that opens into the entire. There's one room, and it's got a lot of doors in which you can get in. And so, as always, I don't see it as being a thing that's restricted to one or the other. And remember, with every teaching is focused on a particular aspect. No teaching can take in the whole thing. There's no teacher, there's no teaching, there's nothing to teach, there's nothing to know. You are already it. You already are the self. What you are seeking, you already are. That's fact. The realization of that throughout the entire energy, not just recognizing it with the intellect, but also with the heart and even with the body, is the path. And then the path, you realize that the path is the realization that you've never, ever been anything else. And when we get to the other shore, you find it's the very same shore you left from. So I hope that answers your question. Anikitos, where'd my cursor go? Oh, there it is. Got a smile from and hearts from Poppy. Thank you. Werner Decker. Hey, Werner, good to see you too. He says, Dear GP, good to see you. Good to see you too, my friend. Mark C. Tina Turner once said, "What's love got to do with it?" The answer, everything. Yes. Yeah, human love is filled with all sorts. Human love is really I want to say human love. There's a very limited, finite sense of love that is really limited, which is really more about satisfying my needs, control and attachment. It's still love. It's just extremely confined. I mean, even hate is a form of love. Now, that may seem really bizarre to when I say things like that, but when you look at it, then somebody who hates is actually just passionately, narrowly holding on to what they love, what they believe is true, what they think is important. And so it's just love that's been imprisoned in a very, very tiny place and is trying to push everything else away. That if that love can just kind of break down those walls and grow, it'll eventually find that there's no limit to it, that it can embrace absolutely everything because it takes no position. And that's the key. The moment I take a position, I say this is true and that's not, I have narrowed myself. I've narrowed my intellect. I've narrowed my capacity to understand. I've narrowed my love. I've narrowed my relationships. I have literally created a world that is just too small, and I will eventually feel quite constricted and lost in it. And then I might get angry and I want to lash out at somebody else because it's somebody else's fault. I mean, that's what we're seeing. It's going on in the world. It has nothing to do with that. You've made a world that's too small. And you think it's somebody else's fault. It isn't. You made a world that's too small, and you are feeling the binding of it. It's like maybe it felt big enough at the time, but as you grow, suddenly the walls don't move. You feel like you have a size 7 foot and you got a size 5 shoe. So, thanks for that, Mark. Alessandra, hi from Monterey. Hi, Alessandra. So good to hear from you. Mitra, hello, I am from Iran. Wonderful, wonderful. I love it. Breaking down the barriers, folks, because they don't really exist. Ida Catherine, lots of love from Norway. Werner Decker is from Old Germany. Kaylee gives me a namaste. Namaste to you. Brock, hello, Brock. Oh, a long-term friend of mine. Hi from Palm Springs. Wonderful. Infinity Coaching. Happy to be here again, GP. Saab in Paris. The rab drum hasn't arrived yet. It will soon. It took me 3 weeks to get mine. Let's see. Anais. Did I say that right? Anais. Hi, GP. Oh, Kat from the UK. Kat's good enough. Chase Grinnell saying hi from Hot Springs. Your videos have such good intention and wonderful instruction. Just started watching your channel. Well, welcome. Glad to have you. So good to have you. Mitras, hello from Iran. Hello. Mark C says, yes, it's Vermont. Oh, yes, I got it right. I could have sworn that was it, but there was a doubt in my mind. And I'm sitting here in front of all these people having to I hate making a mistake. Anyway, Eli, yes, I get that after I dived into psychedelics, I found completely new realms I never even dreamed. But it seems like there are evil aspects too. So now I like to stay with my feet on the ground. I can just be happy here for now, I think. Well, yes, I think that's very, very good. I know a lot of people who are quite adept. I know shamans and other guides. And when you, in any experience, when you run into evil, what you're really running into is a very disowned part of yourself. And oftentimes it can be traumas that are caused by things that were done to you in the past, that are still very present in the body. And that's the reason why the whole plant medicine thing should not be taken lightly. It's not for partying, it's not for tripping balls or taking something and going to a rave. It is a tool of self exploration and should be used in that way, but not without the proper preparation and not without the proper um, integration after the fact. It's similar to the experience I have with people in meditation who actually have a big breakthrough and experience that sense of selfless being, that being one with everything, of they simply disappear into the whole. And the integration of that can be quite a challenge. It takes a bit. It takes a lot of training. We do have to remember that the kind of spiritual exploration we're doing here used to be the only place you got it was a monastery or an ashram. And you went through a lot of training before you started dipping your toe into these waters, and there was a reason for that. So we really should take our lives and our hearts and our spiritual development quite seriously. Not seriously like because it's actually a lot of fun, but vigilantly, diligently, with enough care and love that we show attention to the details. So there's many paths that get there, but they all require a context. They require a set and setting. They require an environment that is conducive to being able to be with the most deep, troubled material as it arises. People get the idea somehow that meditation is just going to bring me to this place of bliss. I keep bumping the microphone, sorry. And it does, it does, but that's not the only point. In that place of bliss is one of the places in which you invite up all of the material that has been first in you, in your own body, traumatic materials, then material going beyond that, the repository consciousness, past lives, stuff that have experienced you over a very, very long period of time. And then even when that is cleared away, you begin to take the bodhisattva path as you begin to take on the energy of others. You begin to take on humanity as a whole. You no longer see a separation between you and another, and therefore another suffering is your suffering. But because you have learned how to be so present with suffering that it really isn't suffering anymore. It's not like you're burdened by other people. You're just perfectly willing to let that traumatized, difficult, dark energy pass through you. And in so doing, you really become a filter through which the dross is separated from the gold. And that's really what a true spiritual healer it is. It's not somebody who just lays hands on you and does miracles. That's a parlor trick. It's somebody who actually is capable of holding energy that you can't, and doing that for you to give you the opportunity to grow to where you can hold it, and you really can become this wholehearted being that can accept the entire universe into it. And that's where oneness is felt and not just thought. And yes, I can just be happy here for now, I think. Yeah, one of the things I have seen about the psychedelic track is people get into it. It's like anything else, going for that peak experience all the time without adequately integrating it. Take some time and just be with yourself. Just be with what you're feeling, and you will find a whole new strength opening up to you. Jonah says, how can we cultivate the heart's voice, its wisdom, intuition? Sometimes the signal is clear, sometimes it's absent, and at times it is contradictory. How do we cultivate the voice? What a wonderful question. Well, first off, don't be afraid to enter into the confusion. Yeah, we can get an intuition, but our habits of thought and interpretation and belief are so different from that that we might doubt it, we might be confused by it, we might be afraid of it. Well, what if something comes up and says, and there's this impulse to do something, and the mind immediately goes, "You can't do that. Oh my goodness, what would happen to you? What do you do? You're going to lose it, right?" And all the arguments against it. There's no shortcut out of that except to be fully present with it. What normally happens is we start taking one side or another, start taking a side of that. Well, maybe I shouldn't do it, right? To try to alleviate the pain of this confusion. Or we try to take, I really need to do this, and try to force the thoughts away. All you've done is created inner conflict. And that inner conflict is not going to accomplish anything. Matter of fact, it's just going to get worse. But the conflict is not caused really by the contradiction between the heart and the mind. It's caused by our taking sides. So how you cultivate that is you sink really deeply into what I call the space. It's the space of the heart, the peacemaker, right? Where you don't take sides, where you recognize that the mind's arguments, well, they're legitimate. This could happen. This, things can go wrong. Things may not work out the way I want it to. At the same time, you are completely acknowledging this energy of the heart and that it has truth in it and it feels good. Now, if you're willing to stay in the middle between those two things long enough, the confusion will dissipate. The mind will become quiescent, and an integration between those two approaches will take place. Sometimes people get an intuition. They go, chuck it all and follow it, right? Like, I'm going to run up my credit cards to buy this course, and this course is going to, is then going to, take care of everything for me. And they don't listen to any of the the things in the mind that may be contradicting it. They also may listen too much and say, I can't do that. I don't need to. I should never do those kinds of things. I always have to play it in this way. Now, both of those are wrong, right? How do you sort it out? Well, you have to sit with them long enough for that to happen. That's the only way I know how to do it. You have to be willing to go, both sides are legitimate, and I'm in the middle, and I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to just not take sides, but I'm going to let each side have its say. And that's the process I call inner reconciliation. And I don't know any other way to do it. As I mentioned, the meditation, it's really kind of a meditation. My suggestion at the beginning of Satsang was, when the stuff's going on into your head, just put your attention in the center of your chest. Not to get an answer, not to push anything, no agenda whatsoever, but to just center yourself in the presence. Some people can actually, you can center it on the lower dantian, which is another center point. They do it for centering the body in martial arts and the like. But I find that if you just center your attention in your heart and notice that there's this inner pressure to try to grab onto something so it knows what's going on, but instead just be more centered in the center of your body, that the mind will become more quiet. And you may get an answer then, you may not. It may take several visits before that takes place. But don't be in a hurry to get the answer. Right? The mind will say, "Oh, you've got to make an answer now," right? Any thought that comes that makes this feel more tense is an attempt to get you to take a position. To say, "Okay, I get it. Thank you very much." And just keep bringing yourself back here. Keep bringing yourself back here. That's actually the essence of all meditation. And this is just specifically applied to trying to get to a state of just much more sensitivity to your intuition. But that's the way it happens. It's not like it's a practice that you kind of do independently of life. It happens with life. It's the way you respond to life that you become increasingly sensitive to, and that's the flowering of the heart energy. Does that make sense to you, Jonas? Let's see. Bogdan says, I remember when I was little, I was seeing things as they are. Is that a memory? A hint? No, you were. Little kids, it's unbuffered. They see things completely different because they're not looking yet through the filter of memory and habit, because they don't have that yet. They have undifferentiated consciousness. So it's not a memory. Excuse me. It is a memory. It is not. It is not an illusion. It is not something we just made up. Returning to that state of seeing things as they are, but consciously, is the whole point of the spiritual path. Nobody escapes the fall from that pure undifferentiated consciousness. But if that doesn't happen, you are really quite dysfunctional. As a human being. I mean, animals live in a state of undifferentiated consciousness, but they don't attain enlightenment. Well, some do. I've actually heard stories from Ramana Maharshi and the like. So even as that, the doorway is open, which pondering that is a kind of an insight into it in and of itself as to how something could be done without intellect. But for us, for human beings, this is the path. We have to first fall out of that sense of undifferentiated consciousness into a constricted world that is the egoic mind, where we are limited and finite, where we imagine ourselves to be limited and finite, disconnected from others, the sense of separation, the sense of lack, the fear of death. And from there, we dismantle that whole thing consciously until we are reestablished in that undifferentiated consciousness, but never again to leave, because it is now something that isn't just the phenomena of life. It is the phenomena of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Does that make sense to you, Bogdan? Juan says, this week I'm dealing with strong wanting and desiring things that are not currently present in my life situation. I can't help desiring, and where this makes me unhappy. Is there a middle way? Listening to your words sounds like sanity, even when you are answering other people's questions. I'm hoping it is sanity. It is coming from a very sane place. To me, the only sane place there is, which is a love that doesn't take a position. When it comes to the strong desire and the like, and let's not forget, at this time of year, there's a lot of emphasis on getting stuff. But desire is a natural phenomenon of life, right? And it can come very, very strongly. I mean, the desire to eat can be overwhelming. The desire to mate can be overwhelming, right? I mean, it's a very powerful part of life. You're never going to stop it, right? What you do in the spiritual approach is you establish a different relationship with it. You see it as the phenomena of life, and not a personal burden or a personal responsibility. You are feeling it, right? But without the identification with it, saying, I can't help desiring, right? Take out that I, and desiring is just a phenomena that is happening. It's neither good nor bad, but it doesn't belong to you. It's not your desire. It isn't desire that makes one unhappy. It's our attachment to the desire that makes us unhappy. And it's our thinking that we can't be happy unless we get it. We have all been trained to interpret the feeling of desire as a feeling of lack, and it's not. They're not the same. That one of the essential things that happens when we have that fall from the undifferentiated consciousness with the feeling of separation that comes with it is the fear of lack. And so that fear of lack is interpreting desire not as an unfoldment of life, but as I'm missing something. And because we're living with that sense of separation, that which is the fall, that we then think that this thing that I'm missing is the answer, that's going to fill up this feeling, that's going to fill this hole, and it won't. There's a temporary relief, and then you're back to where you were, because it is the sense of being a separate self, a separate, independently functioning person, that is the cause of that distress and not desire. The sages have desires. Every sage I know eats. Many are married, or have girlfriends or boyfriends. They have relationships. They have fun, but they're no longer attached to it. What's a better word? They're no longer driven by it. They see it as a natural phenomenon of life, and they come and go. Sometimes they fulfill themselves, sometimes they don't. They're willing to let them come, they enjoy them, and then they're willing to let them go. And even feeling the sense of loss when they go, the full range of what human beings are capable of feeling. That's the middle way with that is simply recognizing that desire is simply a natural phenomena. The only way to truly go beyond desire, beyond the suffering that comes from attachment to desire, is to see that the sufferer is a self-concept that isn't actually you. This is the essence of what the Buddha taught about the solution to suffering, that it wasn't to dispossess yourself of desire, because that's not possible. It was to dispossess yourself of the desirer. Without the desirer, without the sense of identity that feels separate, that wants to grab on to desire, there's no place for the desire to stick. There's no Velcro there. And therefore, it's just simply consciousness experiencing life as it actually is, with no sense of a self to grab hold of it, a finite self, right? Because if it's a finite self, it's going to want to grab hold of it, clutch it, hang on to it, not let it go, and then it loses it, and then feels terrible about losing it. So it is always that sense of identity that is creating the suffering. There's nothing wrong with desire. There's nothing wrong with the experience of desire. And when you realize that that's the case, that thought, I can't help desiring it, becomes less powerful. No, you can't. You cannot help or stop the arising of desire. But what interprets that desire, what grabs hold or doesn't grab hold of that desire, determines the suffering, not the desire. Is that clear, Juan? Is that getting there for you? I hope so. Let's see. Scrolling around here. My goodness, it just added a ton more onto here. And 148. Oh, okay, we're good. We're good. Let's see. Thank you very much, GP. You've been very helpful as always. The spiritual heart comes natural as my focus point when I am meditating. So something important must be going over there. Yeah, yes. And bringing your attention to the heart center is actually an easy way to take your meditation off the cushion and out into the world, because it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the middle of a very important, maybe even a stressful meeting, and you just let your attention go to here instead of to here, instead of this, intense engagement, and just watch how intelligence flows very differently. It's a way of actually bringing meditation into your everyday world, because that's really what it is. Meditation, the attention just simply goes into this pure presence that takes in everything that's going on in the body without judgment or without even interpretation, and gets to a point where without even having a name. It's just experience. Mitra, hello. Hello again. Wonderful. Hello, Mitra. Did I say that right? Is it Mitra or Mitra? Ivan, hello from Bulgaria. Hello, Ivan. Mitra says hello again, and a little high five or high 10. Thank you. Junk Tube, any thoughts on dark humor and catharsis? Is it bad to show people your dark, funny, cathartic art? No, Should it be kept to yourself? No. Some people tend to get hurt and offended from such things. Well, what can I say? Art is art is art. I mean, if you're dedicated to the art, by all means do it. I loved listening to Bill Hicks, who is a very dark comedian. I mean, he got banned a lot of places. Some of the stuff he said about war and about marketing and about politics, it's dark. I mean, takes you right to that edge where it's almost unbearably uncomfortable. But man, was it poignant and funny. So, I've seen, if you're doing dark art for the sake of doing dark art, just because you're trying to be offensive or trying to be contrary, that's not really art. That's just kind of a rebellion against pretty stuff. Kind of the anti-Norman Rockwell approach, I guess. But if it's really the mode of expression, Hieronymus Bosch, for crying out loud, great art, but man, was it dark, pictures of hell and the like. Several artists that, even a friend of mine, Bill Bernstein, is a really great photographer. He's got a whole series of stuff that's really very, very dark, but it's very powerful. There's nothing that says that art has to be pretty. Beauty isn't limited to just, perfect lines and that sort of stuff. It is, you can look at the face of a supermodel, or look at the face of a 90-year-old Native American woman, and which one's more beautiful? There's no doubt in my mind which one's more beautiful, which one's got more power, more energy, more life, more wisdom behind it. So, by all means, let your expression of art be truthful. Truth is beauty, not necessarily the form. The truth is what makes something beautiful. And the more truthful it is, the more beautiful it is. And don't think the truth has to express itself just through pretty things. It does not. Jill says, by the way, and if somebody gets hurt and offended, oh well. They don't have to look. We're not here to not offend people. I mean, when you set out to offend people, or you insult them, or you belittle them, or some kind of racist or prejudiced thing, that's different. If you're just simply expressing your truth, well, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. I don't have a million people listening to this channel. Some people like it, some people don't. And I've had some really nasty comments come my way. What am I going to do? Jill Whalen says, was having this convo with one of my groups, wondering what your thoughts are on it. How is it that we can almost feel the difference when someone who hasn't had their own insights is sharing via writing or speaking, and someone who's had their own insights and or awakening experiences? Same words, but it seems you can totally feel the difference. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And on many different levels. I mean, sometimes there's people who are just imitative and you can spot them. They're basically con men. And you can also sense different levels of experience. People who've had an experience and then turned it into more than what it was, or hadn't let it deepen enough get into their body, weren't really dedicated enough, just stopped too soon. Jesus talked about throwing, about the man who was spreading seeds, and some of it went into soil that wasn't too deep, and things started to root, but then they withered because the soil wasn't deep enough. You can sense that sort of thing, and the reason you can is because you have become more sensitive to the heart that can tell the difference between that. And the more subtle we become, the more refined and nuanced we become, the easier it is to do that. So once again, it always is a matter of going more deeply into your own heart. And when you are speaking about it, to not overstate yourself, to speak from your experience, whatever that might be. And if you're going to speak beyond your experience, do it like a researcher would do it. But some sages, oftentimes heard me refer to sages who are beyond me. And so, yes, I can tell you what Mooji says, right? Right? And credit Mooji with it. So you speak from your own level of experience, and just become sensitive to when you aren't, and then, you know, make it really clear that, you know, thus I have heard. It's interesting that all the Buddhist sermons, Buddhist sutras, start out with thus I have heard, because none of them were written down at the time of the Buddha was alive. I really wish that the Christian scriptures would have been the same way, because none of them were original. None of them were actually done by even the people who had heard it firsthand. So those scriptures should start with, thus I have heard. And that level of honesty really makes even more credible. Because that, in fact, that's what they were. Thus I have heard. But when you take those things that you've heard, you work with them yourself, you explore them yourself, you investigate them yourself, they become your own. You begin to speak with authority. And you can tell when someone is speaking with authority and when they're not. And it's a great gift to be able to do that, because many people get fooled and get sucked into cults and secondary teachings and the like, and can even get stuck there. You're absolutely right. You can feel the difference, and you feel enough difference, you just kind of walk away from it. There's nothing you can do, really. I mean, you can't really call them on it. I find that you know, sometimes I really want to engage with somebody, and I just don't do it. It just doesn't seem appropriate, especially if it's in a public setting. Maybe one-on-one I might, but not in a public setting. So. Popcorn Machine 84. Hi, G from Sweden. How are you doing? G, what actually happens to the shining light of consciousness when the body dies? Does reincarnation exist? And if so, will carry on some of the karma from this life that I never exhausted, yet with me into the next life? Who did you receive your teaching from, any guru or swami? Sorry, lots of questions. We'll be quiet now. I just love the name, Popcorn Machine 84. Okay, first question first. What happens to the shining light of consciousness when you die? Absolutely nothing. Now, I point out, I have been criticized by people for saying this. They say nobody can know this. Nobody can know what happens when you die. And I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. My experience with consciousness is that it is always consistent. It's always the same. The knowing of a thing, the thing changes, but the knowing never does. And it seems completely reasonable, even absolutely self-evident, that just continues. And that the experience of this human life and everything in it simply disappears, but the consciousness of existence remains. Every religious teaching has some variation on that, but the bottom line is the same: that you still exist. Consciousness, awareness still exists. Now, your second question is about reincarnation. Is that yes, there are energetic patterns. The essence of every energetic pattern, it goes from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, is the unchallenged identification with the body as myself. So if I believe this body is me, I will be afraid of death. I will be afraid of lack. Those are the two big fears that arise when I identify myself as the body. Then the body's destiny becomes my destiny. Its pains, my pains. Everything it experiences becomes my experience, and it all comes because I feel deeply that I am the body. Now, if that has not been challenged to a certain degree, that energy will persist, because that which is identified with the body is not the body. The body disappears, that remains, but it is still identified with the body. So at first, at the moment of death, there's this moment of enormous release. And this is very similar to the version in the Tibetan Book of the Dead that they refer to as the bardo. They say it's 49 days. I don't know about all of that, but explanation of it, plus also, explanation of it makes perfect sense, and it really corresponds to my own intuition about it. That there's first this enormous release. And just imagine all of your problems and pains and everything gone. There's just a total sense of peace. There's no emotional disturbance. There's really no thoughts. This whole life is just kind of a dream that you suddenly woke up from. But that energy, what Buddhism refers to as the repository consciousness, they call the vasanas in Sanskrit. There is this energy that wants to identify with the body. So after a while of this feeling of utter bliss, of utter freedom, of utter emptiness, there's a sense that I need to identify with something. Now, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Tibetan monks actually sit with the body for periods of time in between when the body is actually cremated. And I think they may actually even wait the whole 49 days of the bardo before they cremate the body. Not 100% sure about that, but there's a period of time. And the monk sits next to the dead body, describing everything that's happening to them as they're going through the bardo. At this particular point, you're beginning to feel the urge of wanting to be someone, to wanting to have an identity, feeling this something is missing. That sense of attachment to becoming begins to arise, and there's an opportunity there to recognize it as simply the repository consciousness, as the vasanas arising, and to not succumb to it, and actually within the lifetimes attain enlightenment. But for many, perhaps most, that feeling becomes stronger and stronger. You find yourself sinking more and more into it. That desire becomes more and more overwhelming, and before you know it, it's and there's a new body. And then you identify with that body, and the whole thing goes on and on. That's the nature of karma. To come to see that you are not the body, that you are pure, undifferentiated, unidentified consciousness is the only way out of it. You don't need to wait till you die. You can do it right now. I mean, in fact, that is the essence of the spiritual journey, of spiritual practice, is disidentification of consciousness from the body. To the identification of consciousness as formless being, as total emptiness. That is the end of karma. It is the end of rebirth. It is the end of the being a personal self. It is merging with the whole. It is being the Buddha, the awakened one. As long as there's an identification with the body, the repository consciousness and karma exist, and stuff does go from one life to the next. But just understand that really there's a lot of practices for bringing up, for accumulating merits for the next life. So I have a better birth, so I have more likelihood that I'm going to attain enlightenment. But there's only one thing you have to concern yourself with, and that's identification with the body, identification with form. And by the body, I mean the energy, the identification with emotions, identification with, gender and belief systems, identification with the mind, identification with your memories, identification with associations, this whole blob of stuff that we say, this is what I am. That is the only place you have to focus. That is the mother lode. That's the root of all of it. By deeply exploring the true nature of consciousness and your true identity as pure formless being is the only thing you need to do. It will take care of everything else, because the belief that I am this body, that I am this person, is the source of everything else. It's that identification with form. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, one more. Who did you receive your teaching from? Any guru or swami? Well, my primary teacher right now, and probably my last one is Muji. a pure non-dual, a teacher in the non-dual tradition, who was a student of Papaji, who was a student of Ramana. I've also looked extensively at Nisargadatta Maharaj um, and Buddha. Christ as well. It began with, studying the spiritual import of Christ's teaching. I never bought off on the fundamentalist thing. And Buddha, and there's been, Genpo Roshi, and there's some other Zen masters that I've found. I'll listen to Rupert Spira, I listen to Adyashanti, Francis Lucille, the ones that I regard as genuine non-dual teachers, which means it is not just purely the intellectual Advaita, but it is of the heart. And so all of those have had an influence on me, and some others that are far more obscure that nobody's ever heard of. So, and sometimes it's, my guru is my granddaughter, just watching how she holds on to nothing, but the emotions and feelings just pass through, and nothing gets stuck. To actually see undifferentiated consciousness as in its purest form, and also watching the appearance of the sense of I. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, for the very first time. She's a little over 2 years old. She used the word I for the first time. She only used it a couple of times, and now she's back to just referring to herself as Audrey. Audrey's here, and it's always in third person. But you can see that the budding sense of I is there, and it has to. I can't. My son and I have had long talks. Guys, is there any way we can? He said, no, no, there isn't. We can just make that as effortless as possible, so that the attachment to it isn't as strong. Certainly wouldn't be as strong for her as it was for her father, who is not as strong as it was for me. And for my parents, they never woke up to anything. So it was like, unbelievably strong for them. So it's just the way it is. Just make it so that so that becomes much, much less painful and much, much less protracted. But nobody can stop it from happening. So sorry, lots of questions. Okay, it's okay. That's what I'm here. That's why I'm here, right? Answer questions. Jonah says, thanks for the answer. Stay in the middle of it until the heart resolves it all. Yes, that sounds true. Good. And it is the heart that recognizes that as true. Because remember, the heart, the nature of the heart is it does not take a position. It's completely wide open to everything. The nature of the mind is to take a position, to categorize and separate, which is good. When it is pure, that capacity to distinguish and discern is extremely powerful. That's the nature of wisdom. That's the two-edged sword of truth. But all by itself, it just kind of makes it separates itself from everything, becomes completely free from everything, but is not complete yet, because it does not have connection with everything. And so the two of those are absolutely necessary. The heart is totally open. The pure mind is totally distinguishing, and that's the middle way of of compassion and wisdom. Remington, hello, Remington. How are you? How does the creator chakra manifest things as an aspect if the light of consciousness is where everything comes from? Also, do I continuously need meditation if I can release attachments and identifications to the heart without meditating? Meditating as a formal practice may or may not be necessary. It doesn't have to be there for everyone. I just find that meditation, even though I don't need it as much, I still do it, because it grows from being something you do to attain something to just being your communion with life, communion with truth. It becomes a communion with experience. It's a constant reconnection to what's here, because there's a constant pressure on us to distract ourselves and be pulled away, and it just keeps me anchored back. That's all it is an anchoring back to what is actually here in this moment. My attention gets drawn away at things I have to do, and before I know it, I'm completely involved in that, and I've forgotten my body. So I just kind of come back, recenter myself back in the body, so that everything I do is arising out of this integrated, unified place. Now, when you say, how does the creator chakra manifest things as an aspect of the light of consciousness? If the light of consciousness, where everything comes from, by seeing that the creator chakra is the light of consciousness, and it's just an aspect of consciousness. If you are looking at the creator chakra as something that you're trying to get control over to manifest something that you want, you're going to be shit out of luck, basically. It doesn't operate like that. It doesn't conform itself to the will of the egoic mind. Creation is something you bear witness to. You let the desire to create arise within you, and you create an environment in which it will fulfill itself or not. I talk about the creator chakra, but don't think of it as a thing separate from the whole, any more than you could think of red light as separate from blue light. It's a different aspect of it, but they're both light. Their essential nature is identical. They are light. You can't call them anything else. It's not a red, it's light. Right? And light has all sorts of different aspects. What we call the chakras, we want to think of them as 7 separate things, but they're not. They're different aspects of one thing. They are simply the light shining. And sometimes the light shines as red, sometimes it shines as blue, sometimes it shines combinations and makes purple. All of those are one unified thing. So the creator chakra is not separate from the energy of safety, the energy of passion, the energy of vision. And so working with all of them, all aspects of yourself, to be free and open and embraced for what they are, is what empowers creation to take place. Then the vision of what can be is no longer a personal possession, any more than desire is a personal possession. A vision of what's possible, when recognized as being the unfoldment of life itself, and then seeing that the desire for that to be made manifest is also the unfoldment of life, keeps you out of it. And the egoic mind is what makes it impure. It's what mucks up the works. Without that, life is just manifesting constantly. Look around, that's all it does. I mean, it's constantly manifesting. Your body's turning over cells at the rate of 1 million a second, right? That's life constantly transforming, constantly regenerating, constantly manifesting, right? It is manifesting a form, right? But that form isn't a rock. It isn't a thing. It is a constant flow of energy in and out, in and out, in and out, to maintain that form as it is. But that form, it never stops changing as well. I don't look the way I did 20 years ago, right? That form is constantly changing. I'm not getting old. The form is just changing, right? It's not really affecting me. Right? So I hope that answers your question. It's a subtle relationship to it, because when I teach things like the chakras and life, people often kind of jump onto it. The egoic mind wants to take control over it. We can't. The egoic mind isn't real. It's not. It isn't a thing. We believe in it, and therefore we identify with it, and therefore we think I'm the one that's trying to control, to make it do what I want. But that I doesn't exist. It is a mistake. You are simply the consciousness that is bearing witness to life unfolding of its own accord. And the heart nature of consciousness means it has no preference for what unfolds. It does not care whether desire comes to fruition or not. You know, it simply allows everything to be as it is. And then it's watching life unfold with no ambition, no agenda, no preference, and yet delight in what's happening. So I hope that conveys the spirit of it for you, Remington, my young friend. Um, more. Oh boy. Let's see. Super Digit. Hey, GP. I attended a 10-day Janoka Vipassana retreat, and I didn't get much out of it. Also, I'm only 20 years old. Now I'm lost spiritually. Well, we'll take care of that. Yes, it is. It is possible to, you probably got more out of it than you realize. You know, we go into a major event like that. I mean, 10 days of zero contact with the outside, zero distractions, simply sitting in utter silence with your feelings, is a major event in somebody's life. And most of us aren't really ready for it. I mean, I salute you for staying for the whole 10 days. I salute you for doing it. And I'm sure you got more out of it than you realize. But my guess is that you need a little bit more of an introduction to just being present with your body, being present with your feelings, a little bit more body awareness, and then allowing for some spiritual clarity to emerge. You know, please, at 20 years old, I would not expect you to not be lost. You're not lost spiritually, believe me. There's a power much greater than all of us that is guiding you. You wouldn't even be listening to me if there wasn't. You know, you wouldn't be, if you were really lost spiritually, you wouldn't be spending your Sunday afternoon or maybe even Sunday night, I'm not sure where you are, with me, investigating these things. You know, the energy that is bringing you to yourself is quite alive, and it's what's guiding you through this entire process. So you're not alone, first off. You know, you're not really on your own trying to do this. But it's not a small deal. The layers of illusion and misperception and misconception that we have is quite thick. And I'm delighted you're doing it at 20. Because believe me, it gets harder as you get older, simply because things get more entrenched and our lives become more invested in things. And so, you know, sacrificing an assumption that you come to see is true, but you've actually lived a life based on it, can be quite difficult. So not to worry about it. You can go to I don't really have a catalog available, but I'd really recommend that you start doing the inner reconciliation courses that I have. I think at gpwalsh.com/ir, and you can get started on those. They're a very gentle way of beginning to of answering some of your spiritual questions, but also on a very practical level, bringing you into contact with the place where we really get grounded, and that is in the body and in our feelings. So we're not lost in the mind, so that we are feeling our way through this rather than thinking our way through this. And when you're feeling your way through this, that feeling of being lost won't be intimidating. It's just a kind of a temporary thing that comes and goes. So can I even get somewhere at that age, or should I focus on material stuff like relationships first? No, you can get somewhere at the age of 20 by all means. I wouldn't unless you are deeply inclined to it, I would not recommend you becoming a nun and taking vows of celibacy and poverty and things like that. Super Tigit, I think that's a girl. I'm pretty sure that's a girl. So if I'm wrong, forgive me. Um, but and no, don't pursue material things. That is a waste of time. Don't focus on the material stuff. You'll always be dissatisfied about that. But also don't dismiss it. Don't push it away. Don't think it's all about becoming an ascetic, and completely in self-denial. I did that. It doesn't work. I can vouch for it. Don't try it. There's no need, right? You don't need to go that road. I found that out. Buddha found that out. I mean, that's why the middle way happened, because he realized that that was pointless. That wasn't going to do it. It was something else that was going to do it. So let yourself have relationships. Simply don't look to them. Don't look to the material stuff or your relationships to be the ultimate thing that's going to satisfy you. Be patient. Be gentle. Explore life. See, let yourself taste things, and have all the experiences, but seek within your heart to simply know what's true in every experience you have. What's the most true thing here? What is the most that I can give to it, and the most that it can bring back to me? And that's the relationship. A good relationship is there is this beautiful exchange of energy, and relationships don't have to be permanent. They can come and go. It is possible to have permanent relationships that do last a lifetime, but it's not based on because you've committed to each other. It's based on mutual respect and a mutual devotion to our own spiritual freedom, and in participating in the spiritual freedom of another. Yeah, I would recommend inner reconciliation to you, and then just kind of like let yourself grow naturally. Don't become crazy about the spiritual path. I did that too. For me, it started at 19, and it wasn't the most gentle path. The one I recommend now is a very gentle path. It's not the one I took, but the one I took was really unnecessary. But there was nobody there to tell me otherwise, so I kind of had to find it out for myself. So I hope that answers your question, Super Digit. Popcorn machine, can you OFC, you can get somewhere spiritually, doesn't matter what age you are. Oh, she's trying to, Vipassana treated me like an animal, didn't feel natural at all. And there's like one person who's reached enlightenment from Vipassana methods. Again, the way the Buddha approached these things was always that all teachings are provisional. None of them are absolute, and not all teachings are for everyone. So my son has done Vipassana 4 times, and he keeps getting more and more and more and more out of it. Some people have a most miserable time. Maybe that's because you can't let go. At least that's what they would say. Maybe because it's not the right path for you. It's okay. It's all right. However, believe me, there's a million paths. I mean, many will say, well, this is the path, you've abandoned this path, you've abandoned it. That's never true, right? God has a million ways of getting you to her. Okay. Believe me, the absolute is not stuck in a system. No matter where you are, it's got a means of reaching you. So don't worry about that. If something doesn't work, try something else. What's only important is that you're honest enough that you give it a fair try, right? And it doesn't work now. 5 years from now, it might, right? There's no rules here except our own earnestness. If you really, really, really want to find the truth, you will. I guarantee it. The desire for the truth is a prayer that God is a sucker for. Can't say no. So, Moonlight Delight, great name. I have a question about manifestation. If there's no doer, how can we have any control over what manifests? Any thought that says I can manifest anything I want isn't that just a thought that arises? Absolutely true. Yes. Now I will talk to people, depending on what level they're on, about manifestation as if it was something that you could control. But what I always point at is a reconciliation with your feelings. So you're not fighting your feelings, you're not fighting the desire, you're not fighting the desire to manifest, but you are gradually losing your dependence upon the manifestation for happiness and discovering the happiness within from which the manifestation will arise. But your question goes deeper than that, and I'm happy you asked it. The thought I can manifest anything is just a thought. And of course, it's the I that is referring to is the egoic mind. And so when it says that, it's never really true. And most people say you can manifest whatever you want. What they're talking about is the person, our finite sense of self, and I want to get this. And now somehow there's this law of attraction or manifestation that I can get that. That we don't want that to be satisfied. We don't want that getting what it wants because it is absolutely destructive to the spiritual path. Most of the teaching on the whole law of attraction thing is spiritually destructive because it reinforces the egoic mind. It does not diminish it. Now that may seem kind of harsh because then does that mean I don't get what I want? No, that's not the case at all. It means that you are clearly discerning who you are, so that the desires that are arising you are actually coming from you and not the ego trying to substitute for its lack of satisfaction. The nature of the ego is dissatisfaction. And so it grabs on to the object of desire in hopes that it is going to bring it satisfaction. The desire or the fulfillment of it does not bring satisfaction, nor does the lack of fulfillment of it bring disappointment or discouragement. Only the sense of I's attachment to it will do that. The desires arise. Life doesn't care if a desire gets fulfilled or not. It just makes it's another one. So what? There are some critters that live in the ocean. Their life lasts 3 hours. They're born, they reproduce, and they die. It's like we go, what a terrible life. Well, not for them. That's it, right? Is that a problem? Is that a tragedy? Most animals, it's not about fulfilling your desires. That's a very human idea. And what I really encourage is a reconciliation with life as it actually is, so that you see that life, the desire to manifest, to expand, to grow, to evolve, is quite natural. But the moment we have a sense of lack, we want to grab onto that to try to be a remedy for our feeling of lack, and it won't do it. It will be a momentary relief, and then it'll be right back again, then something else. And the very thing we want so badly and we finally make manifest, a week later, we're selling it on eBay. It's like you can't wait to get rid of it. Because how many times has that happened to you? Oh, I just really want this, some person you want to be with or something you want to happen or some pair of shoes or something. And you, oh my God, this is terrible. I really don't like this at all. Right? That's the nature. That's the nature of the egoic mind. That's the whole Black Friday stupidity of, charging in the door to get the deals. That's the ego thinking it's going to satisfy itself. It's not. It can't do it. So you're absolutely right. I can manifest anything is just a thought. As just a thought, it's neither true nor not true. Look at what the I is referring to, and then you'll know where that thought is originating. God doesn't need to say, I can manifest anything. Doesn't have to hold tests, doesn't have to visualize. And what God is simply your true nature. The meaning, the purpose of life is to know who you are. It is not to get what you want. For the ego, the purpose of life is to get what you want, right? Because to know who you are is the end of suffering and the end of desire, the end of attachment to desire. Not the end of desire, just the end of attachment to it. So the purpose of your life is to know who you are. When that really you harmonize with that, everything starts to flow smoothly. Things will come very naturally to you. Sometimes the Red Sea will part, but when it doesn't, you don't mind. It's not a problem. It's not something, oh, I did something wrong, I got to work harder for manifestation. All of that just goes by the wayside. And you just find that life is always delivering to you everything you need. We've just narrowed our idea of what those needs are to be so small that when something comes in that we actually need, we don't recognize it, or we dismiss it, or we think it's a problem, right? None of those things are true. So I hope that answers your question, Moonlight. I can let go of thoughts easier than desire. How can I mesh the two when desires come up? This is Robert Goldberg asking that question. Desire to let go, and then Popcorn Machine, desire to let go of thoughts. Why do you take your mind so seriously? Yeah. Well, okay. Usually when people say let go of thoughts, what they mean is not pay attention to it. From some people, it means I don't have those thoughts. My mind has gone quiet. That, to try to make your mind go quiet is going to create inner conflict. You can't do it, but you can lose interest in those thoughts. And I think that's what Robert is referring to when he says, I can let go of thoughts easy. I can see them as just being this temporary thing, but desire is a different question. Okay. Is not this said that I can let go of thoughts easier than desire? Isn't that a thought? Who said you can't let go of desire? Are you not feeling that desire? Can you let yourself feel that desire? If that thought, I can't let go of this desire, never occurred to you, would you be able to let go of it? Would the desire itself have any staying power? Or would it just come? It would be there. There'd be a reaction within the nervous system to it, and then it would move through and fulfill itself or not. Okay? Notice that thought, it's only our thought about desire that makes it anything other than just an energy passing through. So to say it's hard to let go of desire is a thought. So let go of that thought. Since you can do those easy anyway, why don't you just let go of that thought and watch what happens? And Popcorn is, why do you take your mind so seriously? Well, we're taught to take our mind so seriously, but you're absolutely right. And the mind, remember, the mind isn't telling the truth. It's simply repeating what it has been trained to repeat. It's like a parrot. It's a sophisticated parrot, but it's a parrot. It just keeps saying exactly what it was trained to say. The moment we begin to realize that that's the case, we stop paying so much attention to it. It stops having as much weight. When that happens, the energy that's feeding it changes. Its content changes. It begins to become more pliable, more easy to work with, and eventually quiet, because you're simply not falling for it anymore. The mind is not a thing that's trying to influence you. It is a robot. It is a record playing. For those of you who still know what records are, it's an MP3 player playing. Everybody knows what that is. It's an iPod. You don't really have to think that it's just another thought that says that there's this thing and it's powerful and it's overwhelming me and it's hard to let things go and like, those are all just part of the tape, and there's nothing enforcing those except you believe it. Right? So don't believe it. Go realize it's just a robot. It's just mouthing a bunch of stuff. There's nobody there. It's not sentient. It's not self-aware. It's not making any choices. It's not even really thinking as a conscious process. It is nothing but a pattern of thoughts. That's all it is. And of course, like any pattern in nature, it has a certain staying power to it. It has a certain energy behind it. But the moment we see it as just a pattern and begin to withdraw our attention and our belief in it, it loses the energy and it begins to dissipate. And that's when you begin to experience like minds becoming much more, not just more quiet, but also pliable, helpful, useful. Eventually it becomes your friend. It becomes a tool to use, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, it just keeps grinding away. So, let's see, a little conversation going on between two people. That's cool. Let you go on. Mark C says, I've been through a second round of IR. Like water, we can mold and shape our lives and literally go with the flow. This resonated me deeply this go around. It takes a while for all of this to take. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's not a problem, right? You don't sit down at the piano for the first time one day and then play Carnegie Hall the next. It doesn't happen. There is a retraining of consciousness to recognize itself and recognize what it is not itself, and that its true nature is quite fluid. And we mistake who we are. We mistake ourselves as the body because consciousness is formless. And that doesn't mean it's just this amorphous blob. It means it takes any shape it wants. It's like water or a cartoon cat, whatever you put that cat in the cartoon, it takes the shape. If it's a bottle, it looks like a bottle, right? Consciousness is like that. It's whatever shape it assumes. Now, but when you realize that consciousness itself has no shape, you are now freed from any shape that it takes, which means that you don't walk through life as a shapeless blob. It means that you just recognize that the shape you're in is not your actual nature. So I'm a 66-year-old male, right? So I can be the 66-year-old male, take the role of that. I've got this voice and this hair and this body and these mannerisms and this kinds of thing. And that's fine. That's the shape I'm in. It works for now. I make use of it and it'll be gone at some point, but it's not what I am. It's only the form that I'm inhabiting for the moment, but I am not bound by it at all. So it means you don't have to reject your human life. Matter of fact, you liberate your human life. You become more masculine, more feminine, more tender, more kind, more nurturing, more strong. You become more creative, more energized. You become more present in your life because you know that you are not bound by it. This is really, really important. You are the water, and the water will take any shape, and the water is not bound by, nor is it troubled by the shape that it happens to be in. It's not a problem that it's in a particular shape. It'll change. Of course it will. That glass will break, that tire in the field will get turned over, that pond will dry up, that water will evaporate from the ocean, and it'll be doing something else. It does not affect the water itself, and the water can just really enjoy the journey. Juan says, thank you. Detached from the desirer. Very good. Root. Takes a while for this all to take root, but it does. That's what Mark's, I didn't finish the sentence there for Mark. Sorry about that. So yes, it takes a while. Detached from the desirer. Yes, that's the heart of genuine spiritual inquiry. It is not a transformation of how you think about things. It's how you see yourself. When you realize that you are not that self-image, and it's the self-image that is having all the suffering. Matter of fact, with no self-image, there is no suffering. There is simply the flow of life. And then you get the real spiritual path. This is the real non-dual path. This is the real Buddhist path. This is the real path. And not just an improvement of the self, but a dissolution of the self, of the false self, to discover the true infinite self that has no limits, no boundaries, and no problems, no issues whatsoever. Seeking truth. Is being aware just a thought? Let's say a random thought comes into my head. Then I think, ooh, I'm aware of that thought. But what about me being aware of awareness? What do we call that? The idea I am aware of that thought is, of course, a thought, right? But look deeper than that, because there is an awareness that is not a thought. There's an awareness that's aware of the thought I'm aware, right? You can't get away from that awareness. We can't define it. It's not an object that we can say this is what it is. We can't find boundaries to it, but it's clearly there, and it's prior to any thought whatsoever. Matter of fact, it's got to be there because it sees the thought come, it sees the duration of the thought, and it sees the thought go. So the attention is to the awareness itself, not just the thought I am aware. Now, as the practice develops, you can help train yourself by saying, all right, I'm aware of that thought. And then recognize that you're aware of that thought that said, I'm aware of that thought. The idea is to be increasingly bringing your attention back to the awareness itself that is prior to all thoughts. Even calling it awareness, right? You're right on the cusp there. So keep going with that, seeking truth. You're getting there. You're actually getting there. Being aware of awareness, what do we call that? Well, that's being. That's right. Being, say, me being aware of awareness. What do we call that? Muji calls it non-phenomenal recognition. The awareness of being aware is not a subject-object relationship. Like I'm aware of this camera behind me. I'm aware of the light over here and the screen and the blinds. I'm aware of objects as something external to me. I'm aware of thoughts in the same way. Right? Thoughts are something that comes and go. While they're very, very close and intimate, I am aware of them. Right? There's a distance there. Same thing with my emotions, same thing with my sensations, my entire experience of a body. But the awareness of being aware isn't like that. It's a non-objective experience. You're not aware because you are here looking at awareness, because the awareness is what's looking. And this is the ultimate of non-duality. This is where it's not two anymore. Just look, is there any distance? Is there any separation between the awareness and the self-awareness, the being aware and yourself? Is it not you who is aware? Can you use any other word other than myself? Is there another awareness that's awareness, or is that you? This is where the I comes home to. This is the real you, that pure awareness. It's that simple. It's that empty. You aren't aware of it as an object. You are it. And you are aware of it because it's what you are, not because it's something that you are looking at. It is where you are looking from. It is what is doing the looking. And you can't separate yourself from it. That's the true I. That's the true God. That is the true ultimate, the true absolute. That's what you've been seeking. And you find the one who's been seeking is in fact what's been sought the whole time. What you're looking for is where you are looking from. Does that help solidify it for you, seeking truth? Helen Watts said once, dying is like taking off a tight shoe. I like that, Anakitas. Thank you. That's very, very funny. Yes, it's like taking off a tight shoe. Oh my God. Oh, boy, that was uncomfortable. What was that? What? WTF? What was that? What just happened? Nobody is home. Thank you so much for the explanation of rebirth. From the point of view of consciousness, it's so logical and clear. Yes. Yes. When you look at it from consciousness, it makes perfect sense. If you look at it through the eyes of I'm the body in the material world, I would have to agree with all my critics who say, you can't know that. Well, you can't. You can't possibly know it. If I'm the body, then matter of fact, it can't happen because the body's end would be my end, right? So if I am the body, you can't even say, I can't know what's going to happen. You know exactly what's going to happen. There'll be nothing, oblivion. If I'm the body's gone, right? If consciousness is a function of the body, consciousness is gone. So if I'm the body, there is nothing afterwards. It is oblivion. There is nothing, nothing there to have an experience. So the people who say you can't know that, right, simply mean that I don't know whether I'm the body or not. Right? So I say, find out. don't just strike a critical pose and say, well, nobody can know that. Find out. See if that's really true. Right? If it's important enough, you'll do it. If it's not important, you'll just, troll people. Popcorn machine. I'm reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead right now, hence my questions about it. So it's a problem of identification. Thanks so much for answering. Love and light to you. I am. Fill in the blank. Yes, I am. And if you don't fill in the blank, then you get the absolute. It's really simple. And if you even see that there must be something there to even say I am, or to even acknowledge that it is, you are in the pure emptiness. You are in the pure existence. That is neither, that is even prior to I am. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Good. Yes, it is only a problem of identification. If I'm identified with form, mostly the body, but also thoughts and memories and all that other stuff. If I'm identified with that form, then the end of that form is going to be my end, and the energy of that form is going to be my energy, and that is what perpetuates that. When there is no longer an identification, when there's no longer a someone, in Buddhism they would say no self, there's no more karma. For who's it karma for? You have to create somebody for there to be a karma for. If there isn't anybody there, just pure awareness, there's no karma. That's the true end of karma, not finally getting to a point where you've resolved all the past stuff, burned up all the bad stuff. You can burn it all up in one sitting. And that is simply a removal of the identification with form. That's what all spiritual practice is about. 2:47. Okay, got a little bit more time here. And of course, your questions are popping like popcorn there. Greetings from Greece. Awesome book you got there. Okay. Greetings from Greece. One from Dominican Republic. Boom, you're welcome. I want to see if anybody I haven't answered a question yet. Ann Kaufman says, would love to go to the realm of emptiness and stay there. You can't go to the realm of emptiness and stay there, because if you go someplace, you are going. Means there's you, and then there's emptiness, and emptiness is a place you go, and then it would be like an Airbnb. You can't stay there forever, right? So you need to discover that you are emptiness. That the one you think is going there is an image of your mind and not who you are. Is that clear? Right? See how subtly the mind recreates a sense of self. Now it says, oh, emptiness, this is a place of wonder. It's just beautiful and empty and free, right? But it's made that into an object of the mind that somehow you now have to attain, right? And so it has created, once again, the separation that makes you suffer. Right? You are the emptiness. It's where you're speaking from. It's what's hearing my words. It's what's asking the question, and it's what's hearing the answer. You are that. The image you're holding of yourself as someone attempting to get somewhere is just an image. It's not real. It is not who you are. Lizzie Sandstorm. Is it possible that one is destined not to truly realize the isness and destined to be blind to even though intellectually they believe? No, it is everybody's destiny to realize it. You know, a lot of people say, well, you get it, I get it intellectually, but I don't get it in the heart. Don't dismiss that. Okay. Don't mean that yes, it's not the whole way, but it's the step. For most, it's the first step. Few get it from the heart first, and then, right, there's a lot of people practicing bhakti, devotion to a God, or maybe to Christ, or the like, and there's a shedding of the ego just through pure surrender. But eventually, they too have to come to see that there's not two, right? Which for the bhakti is the hardest thing to do. They surrender everything to their God except themselves, because they just can't allow themselves to become one with that which they adore. But the fulfillment of ultimate love is to become one with your beloved, right? So if you are getting it, you're getting it. Now, don't make up a timetable. I've got to get this life or next life or life. Just rejoice in the fact that you're seeing it, that you're coming places like this to discuss it, that you're asking questions about it, that this is important enough to you that you are exploring it. If it became as important, I mean, I wish the whole world would make it as important as everybody here in this forum is making it important, because it's that important. It's the number one question in the human kingdom. It's what we're here to discover. See, your destiny is to realize it. It's going to be in this life, the next life after that. I don't know. Who cares, right? I'm reminded of the story. It's a beautiful story. I know I've told it before. I'll tell it again because there's new people here. There's a sage walking down a path through the forest, through a park. He's obviously an awakened master, a sage, and there's a very diligent man in his in meditating under a tree, deep in his meditation, and he senses that there's a great being that's coming. So he opens his eyes and sees the master there. He says, "Master, please tell me, how many more lives do I have?" And the sage says to him, "You have 3 more lifetimes, my son." And he goes, 3? Really? 3 more? I've got to go through this 3 more times? Oh, God, no. He's really distraught about the whole thing. So the sage leaves him and walks along. Comes across another guy, also meditating, deep in thought, who also senses the approach of a great being. And he says to him, "Master, how many more lives do I have before I attain enlightenment?" And he says, "You see that tree there?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "You have as many lives left as there are leaves on that tree." And he goes, "Really? That's it? Just that? Fantastic. Should I count them? Should I go count? This is wonderful. I know how many lives. This is wonderful." He's jumping up and down in happiness. And and suddenly the clouds part and a giant chariot comes down from heaven and says to him, "Come on. We're taking you to nirvana." He says, "What? I thought I had all these all these lives to live." And they, "You don't need those anymore." So bear that in mind. Awakening is discovering the joy of right now. It is not an event in time. It's not something that's destined really or not destined. It is, how do you show up right now? You are the isness. I suspect you may picked up that phrase from doing Muji's invitation. You are that isness. The whole point of that is to simply drop everything else and feel the sense of being that is right here, right now, unchanging, undiluted, and has always been here. And that is what you are. So when the thought, am I destined to receive it? Well, who's the I? The only thing could be destined to receive it is one who doesn't have it. Are you one who doesn't have it and is seeking it, or are you it? That's the question. That's the correction of the thought that says, I'm going to get there someday. That thought isn't true. You're it. You're not going to get there. Yes, someday there'll be a fuller realization of it, but do you not have some realization of it now? The truth is, you do have full realization of it right now, but you are believing your mind that is telling you you don't. That which is listening to the mind, hearing the mind saying, you don't have the full realization of it, right? You just got it intellectually. That which is listening is it. That which is hearing it is it. That is the full recognition. The mind will always be saying, oh, you don't got it yet. Close, very close. Just a little bit more, maybe another lifetime or two. But the mind doesn't know what it's talking about. So it's not true. It's not really true. Don't listen to the mind, what the mind says about it. Notice what it is that is hearing what the mind has to say. And that's all you need to do. Is that helpful? Is that helpful for you, Lizzie? Oh boy, skipped around again here. Hold on a second. Oh boy, sorry. Okay. See, Real McCoy says, when I do self-inquiry and try to know who I am, there's nothing there but thoughts, sensations, emotions, mind states, and the awareness of them. It's like I'm waiting for the penny to drop, but it never does. Right. So stop waiting for it to drop because it's not going to. Right. Instead, put your attention on that which you are aware of and that which is aware. That's the only distinction you have to make. Yes, there's thoughts, there's sensations, and there's emotions. That's all there is. That's all there is to experience. In fact, you could boil all those down. Those are all different aspects of the same thing. You could call it a vibration. You could call it a modulation. In Vipassana, they call it sensation. But that's all there is. That's all you're ever experiencing. Now, is that which is experiencing it, is that a thought? Is that emotion? Yes, we can have thoughts about it, but even those thoughts are being perceived by something, right? Just let your attention go there. Now, and the thought says, I'm waiting for the penny to drop, but it never does. Don't believe that thought. You're the penny. You don't need to drop. You're the penny. That which is waiting is in fact it. And remember, that sense of waiting is just an experience you're having. Keep going deeper and deeper into the perceiving and further from what is being perceived. And you'll begin to notice that all of these thoughts and feelings and sense of separation and everything are being perceived. And that which is perceiving, you can't possibly be separate from. And ask, who is that? Who am I? I mean, you're the one perceiving, right? So whatever it is that is perceiving, that's you. That is the true I. So just say, okay, who am I? Who is this? I'm not that, okay, right? Penny dropping, just another thought, right? I'm here. I'm here, right? I'm not going anywhere. That's never going to change. When that penny drops, if that penny drops, are you not going to be there perceiving it? Right? So it's exactly the same as it is right now. So let the penny drop or not drop. You're the penny. Does that help you, Real McCoy? Yeah, it's subtle. It is so subtle, especially when we begin the spiritual trip, and we're waiting for that great definitive aha, that great moment, and sometimes we have them and then they fade, and we get very confused by all of that. But that too was perceived. That too was something that was simply experienced, and not something and not actually that which was doing the experiencing. Let all of your sense of I fall back into that which is having the experience, and recognize that that which is perceiving cannot be perceived. It cannot be captured by any thought, by any experience, by any emotion, by any sensation. It's not a penny that's dropping. It's going to see the penny and the dropping or the raising. Let yourself completely sink into that which cannot be perceived. The I can't see itself. The self cannot perceive itself because it is not an object that can be perceived. It is boundless and infinite. And therefore, there's nothing there, no form, no object, no thing, no thought that can be perceived. It is perceiving itself. Is that helpful, my friend? Liz Love. But what about hormones? I feel that that it is natural and it enhances the desire. Well, hormones is a name that has been, the whole system of thought, emotion, and sensation, which is what we actually experience, has enormously elaborate interpretations and ideas and concepts about what it is and how it works. The hormone is just a thought. Right? You have an experience of a shifting of desires and emotions, and feelings. Within the body. Now, the material model says, "Oh, this is hormones and chemicals are being secreted in the limbic system, through the limbic system, coming from the amygdala or all sorts of different places." Right? It's simply a mental model being built on the experience, and all you're experiencing is sensation, thought, and feeling. That's it. And so hormones are a thought about experience. And then we believe that thought, and so now we interpret that experience. Oh, that's a hormone that's been released. It's just a thought, right? Look at the experience itself. Dive into the experience itself, and you won't need even word the hormone to express it. You can watch how life ebbs and flows, how feelings come and go. And you can watch why they come and go and what they're reacting to. You get the entire picture right there. And you'll see that the material model of the physical functioning of the body is an illusion. It's not real. The universe is not material. It is consciousness. And any thought we have about it being material has been created by consciousness. It's an image in the mind. And it's not the absolute objective reality. Only you are. All right, I've got to start bringing it to a close here. I'm going to look through here really quick to see if there's some I want to grab before I leave. I'm going to have some dinner with family. It's my granddaughter and son and sister. Rebecca says, if I is the ego self, how does that fit with the positive I am statements? Are we reinforcing the egoic self? It depends on the I, the sense of I. When it is, the sense of I exists in everything. Every creature, every form, everything has the sense I. It's what that I identifies. If it identifies with the body, it becomes the ego. If it's identified with consciousness, it becomes the I am. So when you're saying I am this or I am that, it's all an identification with the body. The moment I say I am anything, I have put a boundary around myself. You are none of those things. Right? So I wanted to take this question because I want to make clear that the sense of I isn't the ego. It's when we identify the sense of I with the body that the ego is formed. When we identify the I with any kind of form. So the moment you say, I am this, maybe I'm trying to manifest something. I am wealthy, or I am, I am happy, or I am creative, or, I am charming, I am in a relationship, all the kind of, stuff they do for affirmations. The moment you say that, you have created a boundary around yourself. You have created a line that creates a conflict, and you've set yourself in conflict with the opposite. Don't say, I am anything. What am I? The closest we can get is, I am pure consciousness. I am pure formless being. I can take any form whatsoever, and I am not bound by any form. That's the best statement you can get, you can make. And then let life unfold according to its own rules. So the moment we try to take control over it and control what we're experiencing, yes, you are reinforcing the egoic self. The moment you realize that you are completely open, spacious, boundless, and are quite capable of functioning beautifully, no matter what shape you happen to be in the moment, you are free. You are not disconnected from life. You are completely engaged in life, but you are not bound by life. Is that clear, Rebecca? Okay, I want to take this one. Sorry. Geez, Spanner in the non-dual works. Don't know what that means, but news this morning, 7-year-old girl raped by man in dance studio. Having 7-year-old granddaughter, where do I put this in non-dual context? It hurts. Well, first off, yes, it hurts. Just let it hurt. Non-duality is not a means of escaping from life. It's a way of totally experiencing life in such a way that you can let life become purified. These things happen not because they're natural to life, but our experience has become bound and distorted and made impure, grotesquely impure, by the egoic mind. What every experience we have, whether it be the highest good or the highest evil, is consciousness. It's being experienced in and of consciousness. What are we experiencing? We are either experiencing consciousness as it is, or we are experiencing the sense of separation and limitation and the egoic mind, which is capable of enormous evil. Institutionalized evil. Governments are little more than institutionalized evil. anything more than just managing resources fairly for the good of all is no government should be doing anything else. Anything else is the egoic mind attempting to assert itself in total power. And I don't mean to put in the government, because that's all we're talking about, is a man who exploits the innocent for his own benefit. This isn't about power. Excuse me. It isn't about sex. It isn't about rape. It's about power. It's about a totally disempowered human being who has taken to exploiting the innocent and the powerless in order to try to compensate for its own lack of self-love, self-respect, and self-value. And that's how grotesque it can get. Right? That means that it just reinforces for me the need to preach this gospel as it were, because there's no other way out of it. I mean, it can manifest itself as horrific thing. It can manifest itself as somebody overtly successful, just addicted to have to have one success after another. It can manifest itself in horrific things. It can manifest itself in things that appear on the surface to be really valuable, but underneath it's this craving. That's what Buddha called it, greed. And greed is nothing more than this perpetual discontent. And that perpetual discontent, when it's really severe, which happens in severely abused people, is that it does horrific things. The studies have shown that the people in prisons who have done really violent crimes all had those acts of violence done to them. Or somebody very close to them, a parent or a father or something like that. But violence was part of the world in which they lived. And many of them, actually coming to terms with that, lost the need of it. When that was finally revealed and exposed and brought out in the air where it could be seen with some compassion, that need to inflict it on somebody else was lost. There's no way to compensate for that, except, I hope at some point I'll have an opportunity to work with the 7-year-old girl so she can feel the innocence she's never really lost, and to bring her back to a place of wholeness. I hope she's getting the kind of attention she needs to bring her back to the place of wholeness, where we can not take on the guilt of somebody else's behavior and realize that our innocence has not been touched by it and nothing has truly been lost. This is, the true non-dual teaching is quite capable of dealing with even things like this. So I hope that's a comfort to you. Happy face, and and I hope that's an adequate answer. In real cases, in Buddhism, they don't actually say no self; they say not self. They say there's nothing you can point to which is a self, but not that there is no self. Actually, they do. They do use the term no self. You're right in that they say neither a self nor not a self, they neither exist nor not exist. They're never straddling that. But what they mean by no self is that there's nothing you can point to, that by self, nothing has inherent existence. That's what Buddha would mean. But he did say no self. He says that all the time. And several different kinds of no self, or anything that belongs to a self. But you're absolutely right in what you're pointing out. And that is what he was saying, is that it's not nothing. It's not nihilism. It's not nothing, that nothing exists. It's nothing has inherent existence. No thing exists independent of everything else. It's always made up of something else. And so the thingness of it is simply a perception of it at a particular level of consciousness. So at this point, I really, really have to let this go for now. Although I'm energized, I really want to keep going, but I have other commitments that I want to make. So now I am no longer the teacher giving satsang. I am about to become the father, grandfather, and brother, and hang out with family at the end of this holiday weekend in the U.S. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating in this. I love to see the fact that every week there's more people watching, and I'm seeing new people asking questions. I'm just delighted, and I know that many of you that are here answering questions someday are going to be sitting on this side of the camera answering questions yourself. That is the nature of the discovery of truth. So thank you all for being here. Some people are saying good night and goodbye. Thank you, G. Your satsang is a palpable transmission from truth. Oh, I'm so glad to hear you, that it touches you. Thanks, G. Can I wish for a satsang regarding reincarnation next time? I've got so many questions regarding this subject. Can I mail your questions? It seems to have the requirements of, you seem to have the requirements of a teacher. Yeah, you can send any questions to support@MasterHEARTInstitute.com. I tried to get to all of them. Also on any of my videos on YouTube, I try to answer them. So even here after the fact, if you've got a lot of questions about them, if there's enough people interested, I'll do a class on the whole reincarnation karma thing, and really boil it down to, try to boil it down to what it actually is. So without further ado, then, thank you, everybody's saying thank you, thank you. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday weekend in the US. And so anyway, thank you all very much. I love you, and namaste.